I clearly went overboard here. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the rest of the books that I read this semester. So I kind of did like a halfway check-in point a few months ago where I went through all of the books that I had read. My goal was to read 5 books this semester, and I definitely exceeded that goal. I think I read probably at least 20. I'm pretty sure it's like 20, 21, somewhere in that range. So I definitely went over my goal. So I'm basically going to be doing a brief summary of the book, what I rated it, and why I rated it as such. And some of the books I don't have physical copies of because I read a digital version or I borrowed it from someone else. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Alrighty, so the first book that I read after Daisy Jones and the Six, so I stopped at Daisy Jones and the Six because that was, I think, the 9th book that I read. But right after that, I read Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia, and I got this at Half Price Books for $5.49. I still need to take the tag off. But I really wanted to read this book because it was really popular a while back, and I just never got around to reading it. And it seems like a really interesting premise. It's basically this girl who has this online webcomic, and she meets a boy who writes fan fiction for the webcomic, but they don't know who the other person is. So it's kind of a romance, but it's also this girl like coming to terms with herself and her art and putting herself out there and being brave. It's a really cool book. It also has illustrations of the comic in it, which is really cool. I gave this a 5 stars. It was actually a pleasant surprise for me. I thought I wasn't going to like it as much as I did, but I really enjoyed it. So I gave it a 5 stars. Really good book, really enticing characters. I also really liked the writing and the voice that it was written in, and I think that the illustrations made it a really unique read too. So next I read a play script called Far Away by Carol Churchill. I had to read it for my directing class. And I gave this a 3.5 stars because there were parts of it that were extremely confusing and I was kind of just like, what is going on? But I think that the overall play and the overall message of the play is very interesting, and all in all, I did enjoy it. There was just parts of it where I was a little bit lost. So I gave it a 3.5. It's not super memorable, but that is what I rated it. All right, so next I did a reread of one of my favorite books, which is See You Yesterday by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I love Rachel Lynn Solomon. She's one of my favorite YA romance authors. I own 3 books by her, and I've read 2 of them. There's one that I have yet to read, but I love her writing style. I love her characters and everything. But I started a book club with my college friends, and this was my pick for book club. So See You Yesterday is essentially like the movie Groundhog Day, where the 2 main characters get stuck in a time loop and they have to figure out how to get unstuck. But obviously romance ensues and all of this stuff, and it's a really cool book. I love it so much. I cried at the ending, and I cried at the ending rereading it as well. So I would definitely check this out. I gave this a 5 stars the first time, and rereading it, I also gave it a 5 stars. And then I also read another romance book that my friend Izzy recommended for book club, and that is Begin Again by Emma Lord. I don't have a physical copy, but I do want to purchase one because I loved the book so much. So Begin Again is basically a grumpy sunshine trope about this girl who gets into her dream college, and she transfers there. And she transfers there to kind of follow her boyfriend, but she meets this other guy along the way, and there's just lots of drama and plot twists, and she's also trying to learn more about her mom because her mom went to this school. So there's kind of a lot happening. It's an amazing book. I also cried at the ending, and I gave it a 5 stars as well. I really want to explore Emma Lord as a writer too, because I really liked her writing style and I really liked the story. So I definitely want to read more of her books. But yes, I loved that book, and it was another 5 stars for me. All right, continuing the trend of 5-star romance books that I read See You Yesterday by Alyssa Sussman, and I read a physical copy of this, but I borrowed it from my roommate. And I did not expect to like this because this is kind of more of an adult romance. It's not like super steamy or anything, but it's definitely not YA. So I was definitely nervous to read it, but I wanted to check it out because my roommate told me that she thought that I would really like it. And basically the premise of this romance is there's a journalist and a movie star, and it kind of takes place over 2 periods of time. So it's like the first time that they meet and she's writing an expose, And then I forget when the time jump takes place. I think it's maybe 10 years later. So it's a second chance romance, but it's also like a movie star ex-journalist thing. I feel like that's a thing. I don't know, maybe it is. But it was very good. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the time jumps worked. And there were a couple steamy scenes, but it wasn't too much where I just was like overwhelmed by it. And they were pretty well written. So I definitely enjoyed this book a lot. I did give it a 5 stars. I feel like I just read 3 romance books in a row and just 5 5s. But romance books usually do the job for me. But I really, really liked this one. Even though there's kind of really only 2 main characters that we focus on, I felt like it was good. I read it in one day. The timeline, it just makes it so easy to just fly through. So I really, really enjoyed that book. Next, I read Influence by Sarah Shepard and Lilia Buckingham. I got this at a bookstore over winter break when we were in Florida. We were at this really cute little beachside bookstore, and I picked this up because it's a murder mystery, and I love murder mysteries, as you guys know. And this one is influencer themed, so it basically follows, I think, 4 different POVs of 4 different influencers. One who's kind of like new to the game, one who's a veteran, and then like 2 that are also kind of newer but not as new as the main character. I rated this book a 3 stars, and here's why. The mystery did not happen until literally the back chunk of the book. I want to say the first 60 to 70% of the book is literally just exposition, setting up characters, like all this stuff. And I get when mysteries do that, but it's usually at like the 40 to 50% mark that they introduce the actual like murder plot. But this one just dragged, and it took so long to get to the actual mystery that at that point I wasn't even invested in the mystery anymore. I also thought a lot of the characters were just very unlikable and not written well. I don't know if that's how they were supposed to be, but there were some parts of the book that I did enjoy, which is why I gave it a 3. But I don't think I would pick this up again. I actually might unhaul it, and I think 3 stars is a little bit generous, but I don't think I would pick this up again. I'm thinking about unhauling it, but I don't know. I might have to reread it again in like a year or something and see if I still like it. But yeah, this one was kind of a disappointment for me. All right, next up we have one of my favorites of the year so far. I'm trying to accumulate a list of my favorites because I did rate a lot of books 5 stars, but just because I rated it 5 stars doesn't mean it's like one of my all-time favorites. But this book I think might be my all-time favorite book that I've read this year, and that is 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. So fun fact about 6 of Crows is my sophomore year of high school, I tried reading it, and I think I got to like chapter 4, and then I DNF'd it because I thought it was boring. And I had read the entire Shadow and Bone trilogy and loved it. And so I was so sad because I was like, I really liked Shadow and Bone, and this one is just a miss for me. And then I was talking to Izzy, who is my fellow bookworm at college in addition to my roommate, and she was like, no. She was like, 6 of Crows is so much better than Shadow and Bone. You need to read it. You have to. So I picked it up when we were in Chicago at the Macy's bookstore, and I loved this book. Like, I was so emotionally attached to the characters and the plot and just everything. I did like it a lot better than Shadow and Bone. I still love Shadow and Bone, but this book like emotionally changed me. I bought Crooked Kingdom about 6 weeks ago, and I haven't read it yet, and I'm so scared for how Crooked Kingdom is going to go because Izzy keeps saying, she's like, it's gonna break you, it's gonna destroy you, so I am terrified. But this book, like, I have no words. It was so amazing. The world building is insane. The characters are so easy to get attached to, and I love them all so much. And the writing style is just amazing, and it's a dual POV, which is just great. There's so many things about this book that I just love. I would just highly recommend that you check this out. The only thing I don't like about it is it has the weird cover that I hate, and this little like Netflix thing. But other than that, amazing book. Definitely a standout from the year of 2023. Next, we have another romance. I did read a lot of romances this year, but I read a lot of like mystery thrillers last year, so I kind of wanted to change it up a little bit. So I read Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. Also a 5-star read for me. I really, really liked this. I also cried at this. I loved Lynn Painter's writing. I actually purchased the Do-Over a couple weeks ago because I want to read more of her books. But this was really good. It definitely got a lot of bad reviews on Goodreads, which makes no sense. But basically, the premise of this is this girl is trying to win back her crush from a bit ago. And her neighbor who lives next door, that they kind of have this little feud going on, but it's not really like a feud. It'll make sense if you read it. He volunteers to help her win this guy's heart. And so the two of them work together to try to get this guy to like her. It's a great book. Highly recommend. And I think there's a playlist in the back, which is always the best. Let me see if there is. Yes, there is. There's a playlist in the back. I love romance books that include playlists because that's just so cute, that the fact that you took the time to make the couple a playlist. But yes, if you love cheesy rom-coms, read this. It's also not steamy at all, so if you like wholesome romances too, check this out. Next up, I read The Murder of Roger Ackride by Agatha Christie. This one also was a standout book for me because I've had the same favorite Agatha Christie novel for the longest time. It's always been Murder on the Orient Express for the past 3 years. This book has become my new favorite Agatha Christie. I think it's ingenious. I think the way that she wrote it is so just smart and incredible. And it literally keeps you guessing the entire time. You question everyone. At one point, I even questioned the detective. That's how much I was I don't know who did this murder. It's incredible. I would highly recommend. It's one of her more famous ones, but I feel it's not as famous as Death on the Nile, Murder on the Orient Express, but this one is worth checking out if you love mysteries and classic mysteries, because Agatha Christie is not for everyone because she has a very classic writing style, very old-fashioned, which is why I love her mysteries so much. But if you're not a fan of classic mysteries, don't pick this up. But even if you aren't, check it out because the story alone is just so crazy. So basically the premise of this one is there's a bunch of people over at this guy's house and he ends up dead and they're all suspects. That's really all that I can say. There's a bunch of marriage scandals and just different scandals going on too. So you have to figure out what's going on with the scandals while also figuring out who did the murder. It's insane. I read the entire book in 2 days and I was just shook. Next up, I read Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, and I read this digitally. And I feel I'm going to get so much slander for this take, but I rated this a 1.5 stars. I really did not enjoy it. It is the lowest rated book that I read this year so far, and it's probably going to stay that way. So before I say anything, I just want to say that probably the reason I rated this so low is because I do not like steamy books. Any intensely smutty romance I just don't vibe with and I automatically don't like. It's just not my thing. It makes me uncomfortable to read, which is why I think I rated this book so low. Maybe if I was a smut fan, I would enjoy this more. But when I tell you there was a smut scene in literally every single chapter of this book, every single chapter. It's a long book. It's long. I don't remember how many chapters there are, but there's at least 30 or 40. And every single chapter had a smut scene. Some of them had 2. And at first I was okay, this is fine. But then I got to the 5th chapter and I was this is too much. I am uncomfortable reading this. But I didn't want to DNF it because I had seen so much hype around it. And everyone was I promise, the plot is really good. And I was what plot? At this point, there was no plot. It was just smut. And I was just I am not invested in this plot at all. Not only that, but so many of the characters just suck. They're just jerks. They're shallow. They have no good motivations. I just did not root for literally any of them. There was maybe 2 characters that I liked. And they all just sucked. They were all horribly written. I did not care about any of them. There were so many side characters that I was I don't know who this is. And I feel like she was adding all those side characters just to build up her diversity rating, because there were a lot of diverse side characters, but they would only be in like a few chapters and they would have no significance to the plot whatsoever. I could go on and on. I could make a whole video about why I don't like this book, but basically there was little to no plot, and the plot that there wasn't even that interesting. There was way too much smut. The characters were just so hateable. I hated like a majority of the characters. And all in all, it just was not a good book, and I feel like I wasted my time reading it. And I'm so sorry. I know a lot of people love that book. If you love that book, I'm not judging you at all. It's just not my thing, not my vibe. Okay, I did another reread for book club, and my other reread is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I think that's how you pronounce his name. This is a historical fiction book about the Holocaust. It is beautiful. The ending still gets me every time. It is amazing. So basically it follows a German girl and her story, and her family starts hiding a Jew in their basement. And it's a beautiful, just gut-wrenching story. And it's just about a girl who loves books and loves reading and just wants to care about everyone. And it's beautiful. I read this in middle school and I loved it. And so I picked it as my book club book because I was like, I really want to reread it and remember how much I love it. And the writing is so incredible, like ingenious writing. I love it so much. And the fact that it's narrated by death is really cool and interesting. And I've never seen that in a book before. It's flawless. Everything about this book is perfection. I gave it 5 stars. And the most recent book that I read, I also read digitally, and it's called The Cheat Sheet. I believe it's by Sarah Adams. I might have to double check that. I'll edit and post, put the author down here. But I was really worried about this one because I thought it was going to be very similar to Icebreaker, because it had that like cutesy cover and it had lots of hype. So I was like, it's going to be really steamy. But I was actually pleasantly surprised. It wasn't that steamy. There was a couple scenes at the end, but it really wasn't that bad. I think the issue for me with this book was kind of the same thing with Icebreaker. I feel like this book just kind of dragged. Like there would be some points where I was like, there's no plot right now. It's literally just like chapters of nothing. So I gave it a 3 stars because I did enjoy it more than Icebreaker. So it's a slightly different trope. Icebreaker claims to be an enemies to lovers romance. I really don't think it is. This one is the fake dating trope and also friends to lovers. And I feel like both of those tropes definitely are seen in The Cheat Sheet. I definitely liked the fake dating aspect. I thought that was really cool. It was also mutual pining, which I love mutual pining, especially when it's dual POV, and this was dual POV, so I did enjoy that a lot. I loved it. I think I enjoyed it more when it was from the guy's perspective, because the girl was like so oblivious that I genuinely was just like, how is she this dumb? But yeah, I definitely enjoyed it more than Icebreaker. It's just not a book that I think I would like pick up and read again. And it didn't like make me sob at the end like all of my favorite romance books have. So it was just kind of a mid-tier book for me, which is another, I feel like, unpopular opinion because a lot of people like this book. I need to stop getting my book recommendations from TikTok because I read so many TikTok book recs this year, and most of the ones that I read from TikTok I gave like 3 stars or lower. So I really need to just stop listening to TikTok is what I've learned. Some of them I did like though, so I gotta like pick and choose. But this was one that I got from TikTok that was just kind of mid, like not really that memorable. But yeah, those are all of the books that I've read. I'm currently in the middle of one, and it's another book club book, and it's If We Were Villains by Emil Rio, and I am enjoying it. More to come. I feel like I should every couple of months just update you on the books that I've read so far, because I really like talking about books and I like doing book videos on this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you want to see more bookish videos from me. I love talking about books and I love hearing about books, so comment down below your least favorite and your favorite book that you've read so far this year. If you can't narrow it down, you can put a couple. I don't really care. And also check out my social medias if you want to see more content from me. I post every single Wednesday and Sunday, so I will see you in my next video. Bye!